The sun was just beginning to set, casting long shadows over the sandstone cliffs when Ranger Cole Matthews caught sight of her. A lone Mustang mare stood at the edge of a dry creek bed, her coat caked in mud and blood, ribs pressing tightly against her hide. She wasn't running like the others usually did. Instead, she watched him with fierce, intelligent eyes, unmoving, silent, as if weighing his worth. Cole tightened the reins on his patrol horse, Dusty, and squinted into the distance. He was deep into the canyon sector, farther than most rangers dared go this late in the day. It wasn't just the terrain. It was the weight of silence that lived here, ancient and endless. But that horse didn't seem afraid of it. She looked right at him, almost like she was waiting. He hadn't spoken a word to anyone in nearly 2 days. The radio at his outpost had gone dead again, and he hadn't bothered to fix it. Didn't matter much. No one was looking for him, and he wasn't looking for anyone. Ever since the accident, he'd gotten good at being invisible. His badge still hung on his chest, but inside, he'd already walked away. The mare took a step forward, then paused, then turned slowly toward the jagged hills and looked back. Her body language was unmistakable. She wanted him to follow. Cole shifted in his saddle, uncertain. "What the hell are you doing, girl?" he muttered aloud, though the words felt dry in his throat. He glanced at the sun again. Dusk was falling faster now. He should have headed back toward the ranger station, written up the day's useless report, and tried not to dream. But something about the mare stopped him from turning around. She limped as she walked, favoring her right leg, but her movements were purposeful. With one last glance over her shoulder, she trotted into the underbrush. Cole hesitated only a second more before nudging Dusty forward. The old gelding snorted but obeyed. They followed the path the mare had taken, pushing through the thick mesquite and low-hanging juniper branches. The trail wasn't marked, wasn't familiar. It twisted around red rock boulders and dry wash channels that hadn't seen rain in weeks. For nearly a mile, the mare stayed just ahead, never running, never hiding. Each time Cole thought she'd vanished, she would appear again, outlined by golden light, standing still like a ghost. He thought maybe he was losing it. Wouldn't be the first time. After Lydia died, nothing felt real anyway. He still woke some nights gasping, reaching out for a hand that wasn't there. The desert helped quiet the noise, until now. Eventually, the terrain changed. The trees thinned, and the brush gave way to jagged rock. The mare had led him into a dry ravine nestled between 2 towering cliffs. The air was cooler here, shaded, and filled with a strange stillness. Even Dusty grew tense beneath him. At the far end of the ravine, the mare stopped completely. She stood facing the rock wall, her body rigid, her ears flicking nervously. Cole dismounted, his boots crunching against gravel as he approached her slowly. She didn't shy away, didn't even flinch when he came close. Up close, he could see old scars along her flank, some from barbed wire, others he wasn't sure. Her eyes were wild, but not angry. They were pleading. "What are you trying to show me?" he asked, mostly to himself. He followed her gaze toward the cliffside. At first, there was nothing, just more rock and dust. But then he noticed a narrow split between 2 slabs, almost hidden behind a tangle of brush, barely wide enough for a man to squeeze through. He walked toward it, running his fingers over the stone. It was cool to the touch. Cole looked back at the mare, who now stood completely still, ears forward, as if holding her breath. He turned sideways and stepped into the narrow crevice. The air shifted immediately. Inside, it was darker, colder. The sounds of the outside world muffled completely. He ducked under a low arch of stone and emerged into a small hollowed-out space, a hidden cave. The smell hit him first, musty, like old wood and damp earth. Then he saw the remnants. Blankets, rusted tools, a cracked lantern. Someone had lived here. His chest tightened. A pile of ash sat near the wall, remnants of an old fire pit. And beside it, scattered across the ground, were objects too familiar to ignore. A coil of rope, a faded ranger's patch, a child's pink shoelace. He swallowed hard. It couldn't be. His mind raced back to the reports from years ago. Rumors of an old ranger gone missing in these parts. A man named Delaney. Cole had met him once, years ago. A legend at his time. Everyone thought he'd fallen into the gorge or gotten lost in a storm. But someone had survived here. Someone had made this cave a refuge. And now, a Mustang mare with haunted eyes had brought him straight to it. A soft noise made him turn. The mare had followed him inside, just at the edge of the opening, her ears twitching, eyes wide and watching. She didn't seem afraid of the dark, of the secrets in the stone. She seemed to understand. Cole stepped back outside, the last of the light brushing across the canyon walls. The mare stood beside him, closer now. Her shoulder brushed against his arm as the wind picked up, sending a low whistle through the rocks. He looked down at her again, no longer seeing just a horse. There was purpose in her movement, a message in her silence. She had brought him here for a reason. Maybe it wasn't just about what had been lost. Maybe it was about what needed to be found. And as nightfall crept over the desert, he knew he wasn't ready to turn back. Not yet. The wind howled through the canyon as Cole sat beside a smoldering campfire just outside the cave. The mare stood a few feet away, nibbling quietly at a patch of dry grass, always keeping one eye on him. He hadn't tried to approach her. He knew better than to break what fragile trust had formed between them. She had led him to this hidden place, to the relics of a life long gone, and something in her calm presence made it feel like more than coincidence. He stared into the flames, haunted by the items he had found inside. The pink shoelace in particular had rattled him. His daughter had worn shoes just like those on the day she vanished from his world forever, her laughter swallowed by the cliffs above Dead Man's Pass. He had locked those memories away, buried them beneath routine and silence. But now they had surfaced again, uninvited. The cave whispered of stories left unfinished. Rusted gear ash piles, a journal tucked inside a weather-worn pack. It belonged to Joe Delaney. The name had jolted Cole like a slap. Delaney had been a mentor to many, a ranger's ranger, the kind who knew the land like scripture and the animals like kin. Everyone assumed he died a decade ago, lost to the cliffs or fallen prey to coyotes. But the journal said otherwise. It was full of observations, maps, warnings scrawled in the margins, and cryptic mentions of something he called the theft beneath the stone. Cole had read enough to know it wasn't nonsense. Delaney had discovered something, a hidden valley, a gathering of wild horses untouched by man, and someone trying to exploit it. Poachers, most likely, who had no business being here. Cole had seen the signs in recent months, trampled brush, odd tire tracks, empty bullet casings. But he had dismissed them as remnants from hunters passing through. Now he wasn't so sure. The mare, wounded yet alert, might be the last of that herd. And if she had escaped, someone had been chasing her. Cole rose to his feet slowly. The mare's ears flicked, but she didn't run. He stepped closer, one hand extended slightly, not reaching to touch her, but just to be seen. She stood her ground, head high, eyes steady. "You knew him, didn't you?" he said softly. "Delaney." The mare blinked, unmoving. It was foolish, talking to a horse like she could understand. But here, alone in the canyon's embrace, it didn't feel that way. He felt the weight of silence lift just enough to let his voice through. He glanced back at the cave. That hidden space, protected for so many years, held more than just remnants of a forgotten ranger. It held direction, a reason to move again. Cole packed his things carefully before dawn. He secured Delaney's journal in his saddlebag, folded the map with care, and left behind a token, his ranger badge, resting gently on a rock inside the cave's entrance. A promise, not of abandonment, but of return. Dusty grumbled as Cole adjusted the saddle, but the mare remained nearby, watching with an almost human intensity. He didn't expect her to follow, but as he led Dusty out of the ravine and back toward the ridge, the mare fell in behind them, limping slightly but determined. The morning sun painted the cliffs in gold. Cole rode in silence, the mare trailing, the map in his mind now burned into memory. Delaney had noted a narrow gorge 2 miles northeast, an entry point into the so-called sanctuary, the place where wild horses had vanished, a place men weren't supposed to find. As they climbed higher, signs of recent activity emerged, fresh footprints in the dust, broken branches, a cigarette but still smelling of ash. Whoever had been here wasn't far. Cole's fingers twitched near his belt. His service revolver was holstered, but his instincts were wide awake now. A hawk screeched overhead as they crested a ridge. Cole pulled Dusty to a stop. Below, partially hidden by scrub and juniper, lay a small clearing. A black truck sat under a rock overhang, its windows dusty, one door open. Near it, two men moved around lazily, checking gear. One carried a rifle. The other wore a hat Cole remembered seeing in poacher reports, wide-brimmed, sun-bleached, with a hawk feather tucked into the band. Cole slid down from the saddle, heart pounding. He motioned to the mare, who stood still at the edge of the brush. She didn't need telling. She knew danger when she saw it. He crept closer, staying low, boots silent on the sandy soil. From behind fallen log, he listened. They're in the lower canyon now, one man said, lighting another cigarette. 5 or 6 left. That damn mare nearly blew it last time. Thought we lost her for good. Next runs the last, said the other. Get him loaded, get him sold, then we're gone. Cole swallowed the heat rising in his chest. Delaney had tried to stop these men and paid the price. Now they were back, still stealing life from the wild, still desecrating the land. He stepped back carefully, heart racing. He couldn't take them on alone. Not yet, but he knew the way now. Knew where they were headed, and maybe, just maybe, where they'd kept the others. Back at the horses, the mare stood waiting, not anxious but focused, her body stiff with alertness. Cole mounted again, turning away from the poacher's camp. We're not done, he said aloud, though he wasn't sure if he meant it for himself or her. They rode hard toward the eastern ridge, where the map marked an old path. One Delaney had drawn with shaky lines but bold arrows. As they rode, Cole felt something shift deep within. The canyon wasn't empty anymore. It had purpose. The mare at his side wasn't just a creature fleeing violence. She was a witness, a messenger, maybe even a survivor. And he was no longer just a ranger marking time in the wilderness. He was part of something again. When they reached the edge of a dry wash, the mare stopped. Her ears pricked forward, body trembling. She took a tentative step toward a narrow slot in the rock, a space just wide enough for a single-file path. She looked back at him, not frightened. Ready. Cole nodded once, his voice barely above a whisper. Lead the way. The path narrowed as Cole followed the mare into the stone cleft. Dusty had to be left behind, tied in a grove near the wash. The terrain ahead was too treacherous, and the walls closed in like a mouth slowly swallowing light. The mare pressed on, her steps cautious but confident, despite the fresh scabs on her legs. Her limp had worsened, yet she moved with purpose, as if the pain meant nothing compared to what waited on the other side. Cole kept one hand on the rock wall for balance, the other near his hip. He had no idea what lay ahead. 100 possibilities circled in his mind, each more uncertain than the last. But the cave, the journal, the poacher's camp, everything pointed toward this narrow gorge, and the mare had chosen to lead him, not away from danger, but toward the heart of it. They emerged from the pass into a vast, hidden basin. The air shifted, cooler, almost damp. A canopy of rock arched high above them, filtering sunlight into soft streaks that made the dust shimmer. Below, wild grass covered the valley floor like a secret the earth had been protecting. A shallow stream cut through the middle, sparkling faintly. And there, scattered like ghosts, were the shapes of horses. Cole froze. 5 Mustangs grazed quietly, heads down, coats dull but alive. 2 foals lay beside their mothers, legs tucked beneath their bodies. One older stallion watched from a distance, head lifted, ears twitching. He didn't charge. He didn't flee. He just watched. The mare took a hesitant step forward and let out a low, breathy nicker. One of the younger horses lifted its head and neighed in response. Cole watched as she limped toward them, pausing halfway, unsure whether she would be accepted or challenged. The stallion took a step forward. His body was larger, scarred, every inch of him screaming dominance. But something passed between them, a shared recognition. He snorted once, then turned away, returning to the stream. Slowly, the others surrounded her, sniffing, brushing against her gently. Cole exhaled. She was home. But the relief didn't last. A crack echoed in the distance, sharp, metallic, unmistakable. A rifle bolt being chambered. Cole dropped to a crouch and scanned the surrounding cliffs. The sound had come from above. His pulse quickened. The poachers had followed them, or worse, had already set up a vantage point overlooking the basin. He slipped back behind a ridge of stone and scanned the rim with his field binoculars. After several tense seconds, movement caught his eye. A man kneeling behind a rock, camouflaged by desert brush, aiming down into the basin with a scoped rifle. Another shadow shifted behind him. They weren't hunting for food. They were tracking. Cole's stomach turned. These horses weren't wild game. They were currency. Rounded up, broken, sold off. And the mare had escaped with her life to lead him here. This wasn't just about finding Delaney's legacy. It was about stopping the end of it. He slid back down the slope, heart thudding. There was no time to plan a perfect response. The horses were exposed. The valley, though hidden, offered no shelter from a bullet. The mare looked up as he returned, ears swiveling. The herd was restless now, nostrils flaring, hooves shifting. They smelled danger. He moved fast, gathering loose stones and dry brush. He couldn't stop a bullet, but he could create a distraction. Using his emergency flare tucked into his vest, he rigged a crude signal atop the largest rock pile near the herd. One spark and it would light fast, just enough to send the horses scattering and break the poacher's focus. He hesitated, then pulled out Delaney's map again. There, on the edge of the basin, was a second escape route, barely visible and not marked on any official charts. A game trail carved by generations of wild animals, narrow and twisting, but it led to open land and cover. Cole turned to the mare, who now stood just feet from him. Her eyes met his, steady and waiting. "We don't have much time," he whispered. "But if I light this, you need to get them moving." She blinked, the same stillness in her that had first drawn him in. He struck the flare. It hissed and sparked into a vivid orange blaze. The dry brush caught instantly, flames snapping upward. Smoke curled through the air. The reaction was immediate. The Mustangs bolted, startled and wild. The foals clung to their mothers. The stallion neighed sharply, taking the lead. And the mare, limping, battered, turned back just once to Cole before trotting after them, driving them toward the escape path carved into the cliffside. Above, gunfire cracked. A bullet struck the stone near Cole's shoulder, kicking up dust. Another hit the ground where the stallion had just been. The poachers were firing wildly now, confused by the smoke and motion. Cole ducked low and sprinted toward the canyon wall, hugging it as he moved. He needed elevation, a better angle. The flare had bought seconds, not minutes. He scrambled up a side slope, ignoring the burning in his legs. From halfway up, he could finally see the second sniper. The man was repositioning, trying to track the herd through the dust cloud rising from the fleeing horses. Cole didn't think. He threw a rock, large, flat, fast. It hit the man's shoulder with a solid thud. The sniper cursed, flinched, and the rifle clattered to the ground. Before he could reach for it again, Cole tackled him. They crashed into the dirt, fists flying. The poacher swung hard, but Cole ducked, driving his elbow into the man's ribs. Another shout rang out. His partner was climbing down to help. Cole landed a final blow, leaving the sniper stunned, then rolled behind cover as the second man fired wildly. The bullet missed. Cole raised his revolver. One clean shot rang out. The second poacher yelped, dropping his weapon and tumbling down the slope. It was over. For now. When Cole made it back to the basin floor, the valley was nearly empty. Only the echoes of hooves and the last wisps of smoke remained. The mare stood at the edge of the escape path, waiting. Blood trailed lightly from her side where a bullet had grazed her, but she stood tall. She had led them to freedom. Cole approached slowly. She didn't back away. He reached out, resting a hand against her neck. "You saved them," he said quietly. "And maybe you saved me too." The mare closed her eyes for a moment, then turned to follow the path, limping but unafraid. Cole followed, the canyon behind them fading into smoke and silence. Dawn broke over the canyon, soft and golden, washing the ragged cliffs in quiet light. Cole stood at the edge of the valley's rim, his clothes stained with dust and blood, his eyes fixed on the trail below where the Mustangs had disappeared hours earlier. The mare had gone with them, limping but determined, her strength belying the wounds etched across her body. He hadn't tried to stop her. Some things belonged to the wild. Behind him, the two poachers lay handcuffed, their rifles dismantled, their truck disabled. Cole had used their radio to call for backup just before the signal dropped. Help would come, but not in time to clean up the mess they had made. The land desecrated, the trust broken. Still, something sacred had been saved. He dropped to one knee, exhaustion settling into his bones. His hand brushed the corner of Delaney's journal, still tucked in his vest. So much had been written within those pages, warnings, regrets, hope. The final entry came to mind, scrawled in shaking letters. Asterisk, if anyone finds this, protect them. They are the last. The soul of this land lives in their hooves. Asterisk. The soul of the land. He hadn't understood it fully until the moment he saw the mare stand against gunfire, her body forming a barrier between predator and herd. She hadn't just led him into the canyon. She had called him back to life. Cole rose again and scanned the cliffs. No movement. The silence felt different now, less hollow, more alive. Somewhere out there, the herd had found refuge. A second chance. And so had he. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, burning away the haze. When the helicopter finally appeared on the horizon, Cole signaled from the ledge. Rangers descended quickly, cuffing the groaning poachers, recovering evidence, securing the area. Questions followed, fast and urgent, but Cole answered them all with a quiet authority he hadn't felt in years. He told them everything, about the cave, the journal, the map, and the horses. When they asked if he was all right, he paused before nodding. I am now. In the following days, a formal investigation was launched. The canyon and the valley below were placed under immediate protection. No one was allowed entry without a special permit. Wildlife officials confirmed the presence of a previously undocumented herd of wild Mustangs. Survivors. A miracle, they called it. Cole returned to the cave one last time. He brought with him a small plaque engraved with Delaney's name and mounted it to the inner stone wall beside the fire pit. A quiet tribute to the man who had seen what others overlooked. He left the ranger badge beside it. A week later, standing at the ranger station's overlook, Cole spotted movement along the distant ridge. A flicker of white and gold in the brush. He reached for the binoculars slowly, unsure if hope was playing tricks again. There she was. The mare stood alone at the edge of the clearing, her head lifted toward the wind. Her limp had faded, though a scar still marred her flank. She looked different now, leaner, stronger, free. Their eyes met across the distance, and for a long moment, nothing moved. Then she turned and disappeared into the trees. He never saw her again, but her presence lingered in the silence of the land, in the whispers of grass, in the echo of hooves carried by the canyon winds. Cole stayed on, not out of duty, but out of choice. He helped organize a preservation team to monitor the valley and protect the Mustangs. When tourists came, he spoke quietly and firmly about the history of the place. Not just facts and names, but stories. Of men who vanished, of horses who endured, and of a wild spirit that refused to die. He still rode the trails most days. Sometimes alone, sometimes with other rangers. But every now and then, when the light fell just right and the dust hung still in the air, he imagined he could hear her. A single hoofbeat among thousands, a breath like wind cutting through the brush. The cave was left untouched, and in the stillness of that place, something ancient remained unbroken. One evening, months later, Cole sat by a campfire near the basin's entrance. The fire popped quietly, casting orange light on the rocks. A young ranger named Sam approached and took a seat beside him, cradling a thermos of coffee. They say it was you, Sam said. Who found them? Who saved them? Cole shook his head. I didn't save them. She did. Sam sipped his coffee, watching the flames. You think they'll come back? Let us see them. Cole stared into the fire, letting the silence settle. If you're lucky, he said. And if you listen close enough, maybe. That night, beneath a ceiling of stars, he dreamed of the mare. Not broken, not limping, galloping through an endless valley of wind and stone. Behind her, foals ran freely, their coats shimmering like fire. And when he woke, he smiled, because he finally understood. Some stories weren't meant to be captured. They were meant to be followed, step by step, hoofbeat by hoofbeat, until the silence spoke. And you remember how to listen. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing. I bring true, heartfelt stories every day. Stories of trust, resilience, and the unbreakable bond between man and horse.